I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible, but there's something about humor in relationships that nobody understands. Everyone saw the video. Everyone heard what I said. And now everyone thinks I'm some cruel monster who humiliated the man I loved in front of our closest friends. But the truth is so much more complicated than that 30-second clip that went viral in our social circle. And the real reason I said what I said, the thing I've never admitted to anyone, is something that makes me look even worse. The worst part about what happened isn't that I made the joke. It's not even that our friends laughed. It's what I knew before I opened my mouth, and the fact that I said it anyway because I was terrified of something completely different. I was terrified of them seeing the truth about our relationship, about me, about the person I'd become in those 3 years with Marcus. If I don't tell this story the right way, you'll never understand why I lost the best relationship I'd ever had over what seemed like a stupid comment about my boyfriend's height. But once you know what I know, you'll see why that moment was inevitable. You'll see that I'd been sabotaging us for months, and that joke was just the final public execution of something I'd already killed in private. I'm going to tell you everything, including what Marcus said to me the night before the party, the vulnerable thing he trusted me with that I then weaponized less than 24 hours later. And the part that makes me look worst, the fact that I planned it. Not the exact words, but the general idea of taking him down a notch in front of everyone. I'm saving the why for later because you need to understand who I was before you can understand what I became. Marcus was 5'6", I'm 5'9". When we started dating 3 years ago, I genuinely didn't care about the height difference. I know everyone says that, but I really mean it. I dated tall guys before my ex before Marcus was 6'2", and they'd all been disasters in different ways. Marcus was different. He was confident, funny, successful, and he treated me better than anyone ever had. The height thing was just a fact, like having brown eyes or being left-handed. It existed, but it didn't matter. At least it didn't matter until my friends made it matter. Not at first. For the first year, everyone loved Marcus. My best friend Jenna said he was the most emotionally mature guy I'd ever dated. My mom literally cried happy tears when she met him because she could see how good he was to me. Even my dad, who hated everyone I brought home, approved of him. But somewhere around the 18-month mark, things shifted. It started with little comments. Jenna would post photos from our group hangouts on Instagram, and I noticed she'd carefully angle shots so the height difference between Marcus and me wasn't obvious. When I asked her about it once, she laughed it off. "I'm just finding everyone's good side," she said. "It's what I do." Then my cousin's wedding happened. I wore heels, not even particularly tall ones, maybe 3 inches, and with them I was 6 feet tall, a full 6 inches taller than Marcus. We looked fine, we looked happy. But when the photos came back, I saw myself through different eyes, not my eyes, everyone else's eyes. My aunt cornered me at Thanksgiving. "He seems very sweet," she said in that tone that meant a but was coming. "But don't you feel awkward, in heels especially?" My coworker saw a photo of us on my desk and said, "Oh, I didn't realize he was so compact, you must not wear heels much, huh?" A girl I barely knew from college commented on a Facebook photo, "You two are cute, do you ever put him in platforms lol?" Each comment was small, meaningless even, but they accumulated like tiny cuts, and eventually I started bleeding insecurity. The thing is, Marcus never seemed bothered. He'd hold my hand proudly when I wore heels. He'd make jokes about it himself sometimes, light, confident jokes that showed he was completely comfortable. When I tentatively brought up the comments once, he shrugged. "People always have something to say," he told me. "If it wasn't height, it would be something else. I'm not going to shrink myself literally or figuratively because of other people's hang-ups." I should have let that be my answer too, but I didn't. Because I realized something that made me feel like the worst person alive. I was starting to see him through their eyes instead of my own. I started suggesting flats when we went out. Started positioning us carefully in photos. Started feeling self-conscious in a way I never had before, and resenting Marcus for making me feel that way, even though he wasn't doing anything except existing in his body. And then Jenna started dating Kyle. Kyle was 6'3", broad-shouldered, exactly what a romance novel would describe as towering. Jenna was 5'4", and she loved the difference. She posted constantly about feeling so protected and so feminine with him. She'd say things in the group chat like, "I love having to stand on my tiptoes to kiss him," with a million heart emojis. She never said anything directly comparative about Marcus. She didn't have to. The subtext was deafening. Our friend group started doing more couple things, me and Marcus, Jenna and Kyle, sometimes our friends Rachel and Tom. And I started noticing how I felt smaller in every way when we were all together. Not physically smaller. Smaller in validity somehow. Like my relationship was the diet version of what everyone else had. This is where I started becoming someone I don't recognize. Someone I'm ashamed of. I started making little jokes about Marcus. Testing the waters. Nothing about his height at first, I knew that was off limits. But I'd make fun of his taste in music or the way he organized his kitchen or his overenthusiastic love of weather documentaries. Small digs dressed up as affection. Marcus would laugh along mostly, but sometimes I'd catch this flicker across his face. This tiny moment of hurt before he covered it with a smile. I saw it. I knew I was doing it. And I kept doing it because when everyone laughed at my jokes, I felt like I was controlling the narrative instead of being the butt of an unspoken joke myself. I was creating distance between us on purpose, pushing him away incrementally so that when other people judged our relationship, I could be on their side, judging with them, above it all instead of vulnerable to it. Just when I thought I'd settled into this new, worse version of myself, Marcus did something that completely threw me. He got vulnerable. The night before Jenna's birthday party, the party where everything fell apart, Marcus and I were lying in bed and he told me something he'd never fully articulated before. We'd been talking about his family, about his relationship with his dad, and it all came spilling out. He told me that growing up as a short kid, then a short teenager, then a short man, he'd had to develop an armor. He'd had to become extra funny, extra confident, extra successful, extra everything, just to be considered as worthy as average height men who put in half the effort. He said he'd been rejected more times than he could count by women who were shorter than him but still wanted someone taller. He said he'd overheard dates talking to their friends afterward, saying he was perfect except for, and then trailing off because they didn't need to finish the sentence. The thing about you, he said, pulling me closer, is that you've never made me feel like I'm not enough. You've never made me feel like I'm something to be embarrassed about or overlooked. You see me as a whole person, not a height with a guy attached to it. He said this while looking into my eyes with complete trust, complete openness. And I felt like I was going to throw up, because for months I'd been doing exactly what he was thanking me for not doing. I just hadn't been obvious about it. I'd been death by 1,000 cuts instead of one clean stab. I should have come clean right then. I should have told him about my insecurity, my weakness, the way I'd let other people's opinions poison something good. We could have worked through it together. Instead, I kissed him and said, "Of course, I love you exactly as you are." And then less than 24 hours later, I betrayed that trust in the most public way possible. Jenna's birthday party was at her and Kyle's new apartment. It was nice, really nice. The kind of place that made my and Marcus's rental feel like a college dorm. She'd gone all out with catering and decorations, and there were about 20 of us there, mostly our core friend group plus some of Kyle's friends I didn't know well. Everything was fine at first. Good even. Marcus was charming as always, making people laugh, fitting in perfectly. I was drinking wine, then someone's signature cocktail, then more wine, faster than I usually did. I told myself it was because I was having fun, but looking back I was numbing something. Kyle's friends were all tall, comically tall. It was like he'd exclusively befriended people over 6 feet. And they were doing that thing tall guys do where they take up space without even trying, leaning against walls with their arms crossed, reaching over people's heads for drinks, existing in a way that made everyone accommodate them. One of them, I think his name was Derek, was talking about rock climbing. The height definitely helps, he said. Longer reach, some routes are basically designed for tall people. Must be nice to have natural advantages, I said, and I meant it to sound light, jokey. Well, we've got disadvantages too, Derek said. Airplane seats, low ceilings, finding pants that fit. Everyone laughed, Marcus laughed, I laughed too, but inside something was curdling. Jenna brought out her birthday cake, Kyle had ordered it from some fancy bakery, and we all gathered around. Someone took photos. Jenna and Kyle looked like they'd stepped out of a Pinterest board for beautiful couples. He stood behind her with his arms around her waist, his chin resting easily on the top of her head. She tilted her face up to look at him with this adoring expression. Someone posted the photo to Instagram within minutes. I saw the likes rolling in immediately. Then I looked at Marcus beside me and something ugly reared up in my chest. This voice that said, "This is what people expect. This is what looks right, and you're here with someone who makes you look wrong." I went to get another drink. Rachel came with me. "Cute party," she said. "Jenna and Kyle are so good together." "Yeah," I said, "they look like they were designed in a lab to be a perfect couple." Rachel laughed. "I mean, they're pretty movie star looking." "Must be nice to fit the aesthetic," I said, and I could hear the bitterness in my voice. Rachel gave me a look. "You and Marcus are great too, you know that, right?" And I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was 3 years of accumulated insecurity finally reaching critical mass. Maybe I'm just a worse person than I thought I was. "Sure," I said, "we're great as long as I remember to wear flats." Rachel's eyes widened slightly. She didn't say anything, but I could see her processing. I just openly acknowledged the thing we were all supposedly not noticing. I felt sick. I also felt relieved in this horrible way. Like I'd lanced a wound. We went back to the main room. Someone suggested games, the kind of party games that adults play when they're tipsy and nostalgic for college. Charades, then some card game, then someone brought out Cards Against Humanity. I kept drinking. Marcus was sitting next to me on the couch, his hand on my knee, occasionally squeezing it affectionately when something funny happened. Every touch felt like an accusation. Then Kyle suggested we play a game where everyone shares their most embarrassing moment. Classic party stuff. People told stories about falling during presentations, accidentally sending texts to the wrong people, wardrobe malfunctions. When it was Marcus's turn, he told a story about a work conference where he'd been mistaken for someone's teenage son. I was literally wearing a suit and a name tag that said Senior Project Manager, he said, and this woman asked me if I was there on a school field trip. A few people winced sympathetically. A few laughed. It was the kind of story Marcus told well, self-deprecating but not pathetic, acknowledging an awkward reality without dwelling in it. That's brutal, Jenna said. People can be so rude. It's fine, Marcus said easily. I'm used to it. Comes with the territory when you're not exactly towering over people. He said it lightly, confidently, the way he always did. And that's when I felt it, this overwhelming urge to knock him down, to stop him from being so okay with something that I couldn't be okay with, to make him feel as small as I felt. I thought I was thinking it. Turned out I was saying it. Well, not everything about you is small. The room went quiet in that awful way where everyone heard but no one's sure they heard correctly. Marcus's hand stopped moving on my knee. I mean, your personality is huge, I continued, and I could hear myself talking, but it was like I was outside my body. Very big personality, compensating for something maybe? Someone, I think it was Tom, laughed uncomfortably. Jenna said, okay, whose turn is next? But I wasn't done. Because once I'd started, something in me needed to finish. Needed to completely burn it down. I'm kidding, I said, which made it worse because we all knew I wasn't. Marcus knows I joke about his. I gestured vaguely at him. His compact size, right, babe? We joke about it all the time. Marcus was looking at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, something worse, disappointment, betrayal, the death of something. Actually, we don't, he said quietly. Oh, come on, I said, and I was smiling like this was all very funny and light. Everyone's thinking it. I'm just saying it, at least I'm honest. Marcus stood up. He didn't say anything else. He just stood up, grabbed his jacket from the back of the chair and walked toward the door. Babe, I'm joking, I called after him. Don't be so sensitive. He stopped at the door and turned back. Everyone was watching now, completely silent. I trusted you, he said. Last night I told you. He stopped himself, shook his head. I actually trusted you. Then he left. The door closed behind him and I was standing there with 20 people staring at me, and I realized what I'd done. Not just the joke, the timing of it. The fact that less than 24 hours after he'd made himself completely vulnerable to me, after he'd told me his deepest insecurity and thanked me for never exploiting it, I'd done exactly that. In front of everyone we knew, with witnesses and smartphones and social media. Jesus, Sarah, Rachel said. Jenna looked horrified. That was really mean. It was a joke, I said weakly. He's just being oversensitive. But no one was agreeing with me, no one was laughing anymore. Kyle of all people was the one who said it. You should go after him and you should apologize, that was fucked up. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I was just joking, that Marcus and I had a relationship where we could tease each other, that everyone was overreacting. But I couldn't. Because they weren't overreacting, and I wasn't joking, not really. I'd weaponized my boyfriend's insecurity in front of our entire social circle because I was too weak to deal with my own. I left the party, went after Marcus, but he was already gone. He caught a rideshare and his location was moving away from me on my phone. I called him, texted him, called again. Finally he texted back, don't, I need space. I went home to our apartment and waited. He didn't come back that night. Or the next morning, he stayed at his friend Dave's place. I knew because Dave's girlfriend posted an Instagram story of them watching a game and Marcus was visible in the background. The group chat was on fire. I'd been removed from it, but Rachel told me later what people were saying. Jenna had posted, I feel so bad for Marcus. That was humiliating to watch. Someone else, I always thought Sarah seemed kind of mean to him, but I figured it was just their dynamic. Guess not. Another, my ex used to do that, tear me down in front of people as jokes. It's emotional abuse. Emotional abuse. The word sat in my stomach like a stone. I tried to defend myself to Rachel when she called. I was drunk, I said. I didn't mean it how it sounded. Marcus knows I love him. Do you though? Rachel asked, and her voice wasn't mean, just genuinely questioning. Because it seems like you resent him, and I don't think it's about height. I think it's about something in you. She was right, but I wasn't ready to admit it yet. Marcus finally came home 3 days later. He packed a bag of clothes, didn't look at me. Can we talk? I asked. I don't think there's anything to say, he said. It was a stupid joke. I was drunk. I'm so sorry. He finally looked at me. Do you know what the worst part is? I shook my head, already crying. The worst part is that it wasn't a surprise. It was just the thing you finally said out loud. You've been pulling away for months. Making little comments, little digs. I told myself I was being paranoid, that you were just stressed with work or tired or whatever, but I knew. On some level, I knew you were ashamed of me. I'm not, you are, he said simply, and I thought I could live with other people judging me. I've done that my whole life, but I can't live with you judging me. I can't be with someone who sees me as a flaw they have to overcome or defend or apologize for. I don't. I said desperately. Marcus, I love you, you're perfect. If I were taller, would you have made that joke? I couldn't answer, we both knew the truth. That's what I thought, he said. He left, stayed at Dave's for a week, then found his own place. We tried to talk a few more times. He agreed to meet me for coffee once, but it was stilted and sad. He was cordial but distant. The Marcus I'd known, the one who'd loved me openly and fully, was gone. In his place was someone protective, walled off. I hope you figure out whatever it is you're dealing with, he told me at that coffee meeting. Because this was never about me. This was about you being so worried about what other people think that you destroyed something real. He wasn't wrong. The aftermath was worse than the moment itself. Our friend group fractured. Most people stayed friends with Marcus. A few maintained relationships with both of us, but it was awkward, like children of divorce. Jenna stopped inviting me to things. When I confronted her about it, she said, I just don't think you're good for the group dynamic right now. You made everyone uncomfortable. I lost my best friend because I'd made one joke. Except it wasn't one joke. It was the culmination of months of small cruelties, and everyone had been watching me become someone meaner, smaller, worse. Work became harder because two of my coworkers were friends with people who'd been at the party. The story had spread. I became that girl who humiliated her boyfriend about his height. People looked at me differently. I tried dating again after a few months. Went out with a guy named Chris who was 6'1". He was handsome, successful, exactly what I thought I wanted. On our third date, he made a self-deprecating joke about his job, and I reflexively made a cutting comment back, the same way I'd done with Marcus. Chris's face closed off. That was kind of harsh, he said. And I realized I developed a pattern, a defense mechanism. I tore down the people closest to me before they could make me feel vulnerable. The date ended early. He didn't call again. I started therapy after that. My therapist asked me why I thought I'd made that joke about Marcus. I don't know, I said. I was drunk, it just came out. Things that just come out when we're drunk are usually things we've been thinking when we're sober, she said. What were you thinking about Marcus, about yourself? It took weeks to get to the truth. To admit that I'd internalized every comment, every judgment, every raised eyebrow about our relationship. That I'd started to believe that being with Marcus made me less than. That I'd resented him for not being the fantasy that would make other people jealous or impressed. But none of that is about Marcus, my therapist said. That's about your need for external validation. You wanted other people to look at your relationship and approve, and when you thought they weren't, you sabotaged it. I spent a year in therapy unpacking why I cared so much about what other people thought. We traced it back to my mom, who'd always commented on other people's relationships, other people's choices, always with judgment. We talked about my deep insecurity about taking up space, literally as a tall woman, and figuratively as a person with needs and flaws. I started to understand that my relationship with Marcus had actually been threatening to me because it was good. Because it required me to be vulnerable, to trust that I was enough without the external validation of having a conventionally impressive partner. And I couldn't do it. I destroyed it instead. I tried to reach out to Marcus once, about 8 months after the breakup. I sent him a long email explaining what I'd learned, apologizing not just for the joke but for all of it. For the months of small cuts, for weaponizing his vulnerability, for caring more about appearances than about him. He responded briefly, I appreciate the apology. I can see you're doing the work, I hope you find what you're looking for, but I've moved on and I think it's best if we don't stay in touch. Through mutual friends, I learned he was dating someone new, a woman named Amy who was apparently 5'11". I tortured myself looking at her Instagram. She wore heels in every photo with him, and he looked happier than I'd ever seen him. Confident, loved, free. I realized he'd found someone who wasn't ashamed of him. Someone who didn't need him to be different to feel okay about herself. That should have been me. I should have been that person. The hardest pill to swallow was that I'd had everything I wanted, and I destroyed it because I was too insecure to recognize its value. I traded something real and loving for the approval of people whose opinions shouldn't have mattered, and by the time I realized what I'd done, it was too late. A year and a half after the party, I ran into Jenna at a coffee shop. It was awkward at first, but she sat down with me. How are you? She asked, and she seemed to genuinely want to know. Better, I said. Working on myself, therapy, you know, she nodded. I saw Marcus a few weeks ago. He seems really happy. It stung, but I nodded. Good, he deserves that. Can I ask you something? Jenna said. Why did you do it? You guys seemed so good together and then you just destroyed it in front of everyone. I'd asked myself that question a million times. I'd worked through it in therapy, journaled about it, analyzed it from every angle. But sitting there with Jenna, I gave her the simplest, truest answer. I was afraid that if I loved him as much as I really did, and if everyone could see that our relationship didn't fit the perfect couple image, they'd judge me. And I cared more about avoiding that judgment than I cared about protecting him. So I judged him first. I joined the people I was afraid of instead of standing with the person I loved. Jenna was quiet for a moment. That's really honest. Honestly doesn't fix what I broke, I said. No, she agreed, but it's a start. We talked for another 20 minutes. It wasn't the same friendship we'd had, but it was something, a small opening. As I left the coffee shop, I thought about all the ways that 30-second moment at that party had changed my life. I'd lost a relationship, friends, my own self-respect. I'd had to completely rebuild my understanding of myself and what I valued. And the thing that keeps me up at night, the thing I still can't fully forgive myself for, is this: Marcus trusted me with his deepest vulnerability, and I used it to hurt him because I was too weak to face my own. I'm dating someone now. His name is Alex. He's 5'8", perfectly average height, and when we stand together, neither of us towers over the other. The first time we went out, I wore heels. He didn't comment. I almost made a self-deprecating joke about being taller than him, and then I stopped myself. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," I said, "just glad we're here." On our fourth date, he asked about my past relationships. I told him about Marcus, not everything but the important parts, that I'd sabotaged something good because of my own insecurity, that I'd hurt someone who didn't deserve it. "What did you learn?" Alex asked. "That other people's opinions can't build a relationship," I said. "Only destroy one if you let them." He nodded thoughtfully. "My ex used to do something similar, not about height but about money. I'm a teacher and she worked in finance. She'd make comments about how she was the breadwinner, how I needed to be more ambitious, always framed as jokes, but they weren't really jokes." "I'm sorry," I said. "That must have hurt." "It did, but it taught me what I won't tolerate. And it taught me that someone who really loves you doesn't tear you down, even in small ways. Especially in small ways, actually, because those are the ones that do the most damage over time." He was right. I'd killed my relationship with Marcus slowly, publicly cutting away at him in increments until there was nothing left to save. Sometimes I still think about that party, about the moment before I opened my mouth, when I could have made a different choice. When I could have stood up, taken Marcus's hand, and said something kind instead of something cruel. When I could have chosen us over them. But I didn't. I chose wrong. And I've spent every day since learning to live with that choice and trying to become someone who wouldn't make it again. People think the story ends with Marcus leaving me at that party. And in some ways it does. That was the death of that relationship, the final nail in a coffin I'd been building for months. But the real story, the one I'm still living, is about what comes after. It's about looking at the worst version of yourself and deciding whether to defend her or outgrow her. It's about learning that love, real love, requires courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to trust, to stop performing for an imaginary audience and just be present with the person in front of you. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive myself for what I did to Marcus. I don't know if I should. But I know that I'm not that person anymore. Or at least I'm trying every day not to be. And if you're reading this thinking I'm a terrible person, you're probably right. But if you're reading this and seeing a piece of yourself, the part that cares too much what others think, the part that sometimes hurts the people you love because you're afraid of being hurt first, then maybe my story means something. Maybe it means you'll make a different choice when your moment comes. Maybe you'll choose love over fear. I didn't. And I have to live with that every single day.